Hello and welcome to our webinar, Global Beauty and Personal Care Trends 2018. Mintel's global expert analysts have identified 4 trends that are set to impact the beauty industry in the year ahead. Each of these trends is grounded on in-depth analysis of what consumers are thinking, what's happening in the market, and how companies are winning. Today, I am joined by Andrew McDougall, our global hair care analyst, who is going to discuss these trends in more detail so you can take some key ideas and apply them to your projects. The presentation will run for roughly 30 minutes. Please bear in mind that we might not have time to answer questions after the presentation. In any case, we will respond to these questions, to the questions that you sent and that we don't cover on this webinar by email. Now, without further ado, over to Andrew.
Thank you very much, Diana. As Diana said, today we will look at the 2018 global beauty trends that we as a BPC team have put together. And the 4 trends that we've come up with, you can see on your screen here, the playing Mother Nature, this idea of sort of the developing naturals market, the My Beauty, My Rules, sort of taking customization to a new level, campaign capital, looking at brands and personality, and then finally private eye, looking at data and technology. Now, as a team of global analysts, we've sort of come together with these ideas and come up with these 4 trends. So hopefully you can see how they affect all BPC categories in different ways and can look at how they can apply. So to begin with, we'll start with the playing Mother Nature trend, which is all about sort of how science and technology can sort of help develop the ever-demanding sort of natural space that we see. And this is important from a global level for consumers, purely because people are looking for natural products or natural ingredients. They're buying natural products or products with natural ingredients, and they're also planning to use them in the future as well. So it really is a key consumer point for them. What we're seeing in the market right now is that naturals in general, as I'm sure you will have seen, is that they're very popular right now. They are on the rise. They are viewed as sort of pure and safer in the consumer mindset. And so we're now seeing a lot of larger companies also get on board with this. The example you have on your screen from Unilever's Apothecary Essentials series is just one example of that. But with the sort of the rising popularity of naturals, there is also a dark side to having so much demand. And consumers are also aware of this. Humans are aware of sort of the environmental issues that we have, the impact that sort of sourcing ingredients can have on climate change and the loss of biodiversity, so much so that almost half of the planet's natural habitats have actually been cleared for human use. So there is this downside, and consumers are now turning to sort of websites and apps such as the Detox Me app, which you can get on your smartphone, and this can help consumers make cleaner and safer product choices by telling them more about the ingredients and how those ingredients were sourced. And with a focus put on the sourcing of ingredients, the locavore concept is another one now that is ever more important for consumers, something that we initially saw from sort of niche or smaller indie brands, but we are now seeing large brands again adopt this mindset and actually using the local resources to help minimize their environmental impact and also to source local ingredients with a clever marketing story around it as well. And it's something we've seen Nestle do in particular in Mexico just recently, having agreed to source all of its grains from the local area to its factory by 2022. We're also seeing companies turn to biotechnology as well to help boost natural extracts. This idea that we can take the crops and the ingredients that we're currently sourcing and actually make them more effective. That's always been a sort of a concept for people to get their heads around, this idea that naturals are safer and purer, but they may not be as effective as sort of synthetically made ingredients. And biotech sort of helps to bridge that gap for that. Looming Tang is the example that you can see on your screen in front of you, and it's this idea that they take traditional tea extracts and sort of give them a boost or supersize them with this bioremedy trio complex that they have, just to sort of create a more high definition product and utilize those ingredients better. And we're also seeing this concept then even reach the sort of outer space as well, this idea that research was done a few years ago that in space the aging process is sped up. So a beauty brand, Meisu, actually then thought, right, we can then sort of use this and harness this kind of idea to then create a ginseng seed yeast from this sort of space idea and almost give it more of a boost. This idea that this natural ingredient has now been improved for use in this anti-aging concept, and it also creates quite an interesting marketing story around it as well. And with this in mind of what we're seeing on the market, what we expect to see as well going forward is that we expect to see companies, when sort of talking about these sourcing issues, we expect to see companies turn to agritech to help deal with that. This idea that land and resource limitations are ever growing, the demand is ever growing. So we're actually seeing that companies can use things like aeroponics and hydroponics to actually grow ingredients and use biotechnology and gene editing as well to actually produce and develop these ingredients anywhere in the world without having to use up particular land or soil as well. We're also seeing that the food industry, as ever, is again a source of good inspiration for beauty as well, particularly when we look at things like fermentation. It's something that we can definitely see going forward in the beauty industry. I mentioned obviously the yeast extract used by Meisu earlier on, and sort of different yeast and bacteria being used more and more in skin and hair care. And food is a good way of sort of seeing the future for this as well. This idea, the two examples that we have on the screen, the startup Perfect Day fermentation is used to make milk, but without the need for cows, this animal-free concept. And we also have this idea of the Impossible Burger, which again is this meat-free burger that has been produced by fermentation. Developments in science as well also mean that we can actually make synthetic naturals safe and pure as well. This idea that consumers view natural ingredients as safer and purer, so we can actually then use the science to boost these concepts as well through things like biotechnology, as I mentioned, but also gene editing as well can actually help to make products even safer and actually remove allergens from a plant, for example. And CRISPR is a concept that has been used in the past to modify fruits and vegetables to help them sort of survive drought or even to sort of help them last longer. And it's definitely a concept that we can see moving to the beauty and personal care space as well. Packaging and plastics as well will also have to be able to utilize waste to become more sustainable as well. This idea that carbon dioxide emissions are quite ripe in the consumer mindset right now. We talk about it a lot when concerning the climate change debate. So a way to reduce these emissions is going to be of importance going forward. And Covestro is a polymer manufacturer who's actually found a way to produce plastic packaging from CO2 emissions, which again embraces a new way of using plastics for things like cosmetics and beauty packaging, but also cosmetic and beauty accessories such as brushes or applicators could also utilize this kind of plastic packaging. But with all these developments as well, it's also important to educate the consumer and make them aware. Obviously, when you mention things like gene editing and biotechnology, the consumer may already have preconceptions of what they are, or they may not know what they are. So it's really important to educate consumers of the benefits of biotech naturals. And we can do this sort of in the ever online world that we live in, using sort of influencers to help spread the message and also to garner trust from consumers. But it also makes sort of companies more transparent to consumers as well, which again will help build trust as well. So to sum up the playing Mother Nature trend, we're seeing that nature and technology aren't particularly mutually exclusive. We can have pure, safe and effectively boosted natural ingredients, this idea of sort of having natural 2.0 ingredients. We also see as well this idea that we can actually create sustainable alternatives for consumers, and this can create a good story around ingredients. And finally, it also encourages greater transparency and education for the consumer. Consumers are always wanting to be more informed these days, and this will definitely help to meet those demands for beauty brands. Moving on now then to the second of the 4 beauty trends is the My Beauty, My Rules trend, which is all about sort of beauty no longer being defined by a set list of rules, but it's actually defined by the consumer. They don't want to be defined by their age or their skin color or body type. They want to be able to sort of have their beauty on their terms. And we're seeing this particularly important again around the world, particularly amongst younger consumers as well as others, to show that consumers are saying that they don't feel their ethnicity is accurately portrayed in advertising. So they're noticing these gaps. We're also seeing consumers say they're frustrated that products don't match their particular skin tone, and this sort of extends to hair and color as well. And we're also seeing as well this idea that the word individuality and being an individual actually defines luxury for a lot of consumers as well. So brands really need to be aware of this concept and meet consumers at this level. And what we're seeing with this, in particular to begin with, was the genderless trend, which has sort of highlighted that we can't put things into set boxes. This idea now that beauty is for all, and there should be products to meet everyone's different needs. CoverGirl, Maybelline, as well as Rimmel London have all sort of led the way by sort of touting their male ambassadors for their color cosmetics lines. L'Oreal as well utilized it in its TV and digital advertising. But also the Makeup is Genderless campaign from beauty blogger Jamie Ward also helped to support this from sort of a load of different angles from sort of celebrities and different makeup artists that really helped to highlight this for consumers. We've also seen as well that beauty's changed sort of the way we look at aging. So now you can be who you want to be rather than sort of being defined by sort of a demographic or a specific age range. And the example that we have here is from the Korea grandmother, or the Korea grandma, sorry, a woman called Park Mak-rae, who's 70 years old, and she produces a number of sort of videos about sort of fashion tips, beauty tips, lifestyle tips, and she's very charming and engaging as well. And she was actually named by US Vogue's one of the most influential YouTube video stars for 2017. And she pretty much epitomizes the message that happiness in beauty is whatever you want it to be, regardless of age and of circumstance as well. We're also seeing that brands are having to be more inclusive and authentic with it as well, and this idea that it should be part of their attitude rather than just a selling point. And they need products, as I mentioned earlier, this idea that consumers are frustrated that products don't match their particular skin tone. We are now seeing brands adapt and react to this. And Rihanna's Fenty Beauty range was a good example of this, offering shades for all, so that everyone was included, and it focused on a wide range of different sort of skin tones which weren't normally catered for. We're also seeing as well that our personality is coming into play more and more, and brands are looking to utilize this more and more to sort of be more inclusive and actually to help consumers make more choices. And this is something that Sephora actually did in Singapore by launching a vending machine that would actually offer passers-by free customizable makeup sets. They could also actually then take a personality test, which they could then use the information to redeem a tailored makeover in a particular Sephora store. So this idea that your personality can actually dictate what type of beauty products you can use and how they will work for you. And then personalization as well can also take on this kind of subscription model as well. This idea that throughout the month and every month we are going to have different needs, and these needs are going to need to be met, particularly when you take into account seasonal changes but also body changes as well. And this is something that Toon28 actually jumped on board with in Korea by offering personalized natural skincare subscriptions that were based on women's 28-day cycles. This idea that you get one fresh product in the batch for each different part of the face, so the T-zone, the eyes, sort of the neckline and the chin, and also the nose and lip area as well. And so each batch will last for 28 days. The products are refreshed, and also Toon28 also then predict the consumer's particular needs, for example, depending on the climates they live in or the particular way that they're living their life. And what we're expecting more and more going forward then is this idea that brands are going to be embracing diversity more and making sure they include people more as well. And it's something that we saw just recently with Facebook adding 125 new emojis to its platforms to actually include families with varied skin tones, as well as male and female single parents and same-sex couples too. So this idea that brands and companies are noticing more and more the diversity and putting this more and more into their practices. We're also seeing as well this idea that consumers are going to be in control of their own beauty more and more. This was highlighted by the recent Boots No. 7 new makeup campaign that ran in the UK, which showed a fencer with all these, she was having a fencing duel, and all these sort of explosions of colour were inferring that this was all about makeup and colour cosmetics and powders. And at the end, the fencer removes her mask, but we never actually see her face. And the idea behind it is that it's all about beauty for yourself. You're in control of your own beauty, and it's about the way it makes you feel rather than the way it makes you look to other people. And we're seeing that real-time transformations can also help this feeling of individuality and consumers being in control of their own beauty as well. And this is something we've seen used more and more in hair care, this idea of having real-time transformation hair colorants that actually change with the temperature. So we saw this right at the start of 2017 at London Fashion Week from the Unseen's fire colorants, which respond to a particular environment and change color with the temperature. But later in the year, we've also seen Pravana Vivid Moods Color have actually produced a temporary colorant, which can actually switch shades through the use of heated hair appliances. So by applying a hair straightener or a hot heat and a blow dryer, can actually change the original shade, which will actually then return to the shade as it cools down. We're also expecting to see new beauty codes being mapped out for consumers as well, beyond just appearance. This idea that you're more than just how you look. And this is something that Wet n Wild did in its Breaking Beauty campaign, which celebrated beauty for all. They included sort of transgender models in the campaign. They used a cancer survivor, different activists, and also the first model with albinism as well. And this idea, again, that brands are recognizing and respecting different physical characteristics, because that's what represents all of us, and that actually the identities are more important than just the appearance of the consumer. And brands are also looking as well to get ultra personal, and just this idea as well that your actual body itself can actually tell us so much of sort of the state of play and what you need in particular. We see this used a lot in nutrition for dietary and health aspects as well. H-Code is actually a human microbiome testing company in China that actually uses stool samples to sort of tell us more about how our gut, the situation in our gut, and then can sort of give us dietary or health recommendations based on that. And in 2017, they've actually launched a DNA prescribed customizable skincare concept. Again, this idea that our bodies can actually dictate what in particular we need. And we expect this kind of apparatus and this type of concept to be used more and more going forward for skin and hair care products. So to continue then, also sorry to wrap up with this, is this idea that the My Beauty, My Rules trend is all about brands reflecting diversity and catering for each individual. We're seeing that products will have to offer more personalization for the consumer and on a day-by-day basis as well, which means they are going to be sort of dynamic and adaptable as well and reflect the individuality of the consumer. The third trend we'll look at today from the 2018 beauty trends is the campaign capital trend, which is all about how brands need to have an authentic personality. Just selling products is no longer good enough. They're going to need to have a particular personality that consumers can align and sort of feel more connected to. And this is important, as I say, because consumers want brands to align with their values, be this with sort of animal testing or just on ethical issues. We do see that consumers will actually stop buying brands if they believe they're unethical. And we will actually see consumers preferring ethical brands, even when there's other brands more widely available. And at the minute, we're seeing that brands are utilizing this kind of concept by promoting genuine purposes and sort of helping out by highlighting and also donating to particular causes. The example that we have on screen here is from Thrive Cosmetics, which was actually born out of the friendship between Carissa Bodner, the founder, and her best friend who actually lost her battle with cancer. But through this friendship, she saw how cancer patients sort of go through the different stages. They lose their natural eyelashes due to chemotherapy, they lose their hair. But it was this idea that Bodner wanted to create a clean beauty line that could actually make everyone feel beautiful, and it had a cause and it had a genuine connection to make with those particular consumers. There's also this idea as well that for every product that is purchased from Thrive Cosmetics, the company actually donates. So it's a genuine concept for the company, and it's donating and helping out with cancer treatment and cancer research. We're also seeing as well this idea that beauty brands are seeing the benefits of having a conscience and it being important as well. This idea that consumers will be put off by unethical brands. They want their brands to be ethical. So brands now are showing greater transparency right through their supply chain, and this has helped to strengthen their trust image to the consumer. And it's something that Ecovadis have done with the Responsible Beauty initiative that it's set up, and it's actually collaborated already with Clarins, Coty, Groupe Rocher, and L'Oreal. And the idea behind this is to help strengthen the sustainability throughout the complete supply chain by working with companies and ensuring that they're transparent about their sustainable practices, and this is part of the business rather than just a marketing tool. We're also seeing as well that brands are putting core issues at the forefront of their marketing campaigns as well. The example that we have here is the Forever Against Animal Testing campaign that the Body Shop ran, and this idea that it's petitioning and using its marketing campaign to actually amass signatures towards this complete ban globally for animal testing. As well as these kind of campaigns, brands are also turning to sort of campaigns to help people get started in beauty and in business as well, and helping people from a young age, as well as from different demographics as well. Sephora's Accelerate program actually promotes female entrepreneurs and actually aims to support female beauty founders, sort of giving them mentoring and funding to help them get started. And the office space company WeWork as well has also launched an entrepreneurial school for children to sort of give them lessons in business and sort of help them get ahead going forward. With this in mind, though, we do see that it is a fine line between sort of running these kind of campaigns. So brands need to be very careful. The examples that we have highlighted here are of exams that had very good intentions, but there was just they didn't hit the mark quite right, and there was consumer backlash for this. The top one is Benefit's Skip Class Not Concealer campaign, which initially just tongue-in-cheek, but it actually ended up angered consumers who believed it was promoting the myth that being pretty is better than being educated. So there was a backlash against this campaign. And also Dove's Real Beauty Bottles campaign as well was also well intentioned. This idea that you could choose the particular beauty bottle depending on your desired beauty shape or how you felt sort of reflected yourself. But this was then seen as patronizing and also as body shaming. So it was actually the opposite of what the company had intended. So going forward then, and looking at sort of where we see this particular trend going for brands, we're seeing that brands should actually celebrate these failures. This idea that it's actually going to help build trust and make brands and products seem more real for consumers. Brands can actually share the journey that led them to their current status. Consumers aren't going to believe it if brands just say we were success after success after success. Brands are going to, they're going to see the benefits behind saying how they got to where they are. It makes it more real and it makes it more personal for the consumer as well. And brands need to have a personality and they need to have a genuine stance on things, as this is going to resonate better with consumers. Consumers are becoming more open with their opinions themselves, particularly in the world of social media and digital. So they're very vocal about what they stand for. And so they increasingly expect brands themselves to actually do the same. And they are going to align better with brands that stand for the same things that they do. And this is going to provide better clarity for the beauty industry. The example that we have on screen here is actually from the Diesel fashion campaign, which is all about make love, not walls, which was sort of tongue-in-cheek to the Trump campaign last year, which was all about building the wall with Mexico. Diesel decided to flip this on its head and say, hey, let's make love, let's get together rather than separate. We're also seeing as well that success as well of the indie brands and the niche brands is something that bigger brands, as we looked at earlier on, they are looking to the smaller brands and how they've been successful. And this was definitely something that was born out of this idea of putting the people or the personality at the forefront of the business. So brands now should celebrate their founders, and they should have more of a personality to their brands. It's something that Coty actually did when it rebranded Sally Hansen, by hiring 2 investigative journalists to actually look into Sally Hansen and the real woman behind the brand. This then sort of brought up the idea of this tagline of self-made beauty. Sally Hansen's signature itself is actually used as in the brand logo. This idea of putting a human face and a personality at the forefront of a brand. We're also seeing as well that seeing as we track and we rate everything now from restaurants to cab journeys, why not do this with an ethical index? This idea that there is space now for apps where consumers can actually give a social rating for brands that they buy. And this could all feed into an overall ethical index, which can help to create achievable goals and for us to monitor just how ethical brands are being. As we see how important it is for brands to be ethical, it can be good as well to have this transparency from consumers. We're also seeing as well that customer service needs to be more personal. This idea that we don't want to feel like we're talking to a robot or we're talking to a computer. We want to speak to an actual person. And this is something that Southern Rail, which is a train company in the UK, actually did very well with their campaign that they actually ran in July, where they hired a work experience school child to actually run their Twitter account. Now, Southern Rail, for those that don't know, is a train company that's well known for its delays and its cancelled trains, which causes a lot of ire for consumers. And the Twitter account is normally full of very discontented consumers, and it's not particularly a happy place to be. But when Eddie ran it for Southern Rail for a week in July of 2017, he answered as if he was talking to his friends. The tone of voice was different, so the communication itself was different. So he answered people as a person, and his approach then sort of built up a rapport with consumers, who then started asking silly questions like what they should have for dinner, or particularly sort of philosophical questions, to which Eddie would then answer in sort of a whimsical way. And this was actually turned out to be a huge success for Southern Rail, and just shows how talking to people as people is so important for brands. So to sum up the campaign capital trend, consumers want brands that are genuine and that align with their values and stand for them as well. But these have to be genuinely motivated. Consumers can see right through brands if they're doing things just for marketing purposes. So they have to be authentic campaigns that brands run. And brands also need to focus then on being more personal and talking to their consumers as people and as partners, rather than just as a target audience as well. Moving on then to the final trend in our 2018 beauty trends, we have the private eye trend, which is all about sort of digital technology and data as a part of our everyday lives more and more now. So it's all about how we're going to use this data and how we're going to use this technology going forward. And this is important from a beauty consumer level, because beauty consumers want a more interactive and a more personalized shopping experience. We're already seeing that consumers are directly buying through social media now, or are interested in doing so, and sort of cutting out the middleman. We're also seeing that consumers are showing interest or already using digital assistants to actually help them make purchases in the future. And we're also seeing as well that consumers want to use particular apps in store as well, sort of combining the online and the offline, to actually use apps in store for particular discounts or recommendations too. And we're seeing this now as our devices, in particular our tablets and our smartphones, are becoming more intuitive. And we're seeing eye tracking in particular is something that brands are using more and more. Modiface is a technology company that a number of beauty brands have utilized for different purposes over the years. And Smashbox has recently just trialed a new Modiface app that actually allows users eye movements, follows users' eye movements to see which products they're interested in, which shades and which colors. And it can then send prompts to sort of request more information, or to actually help the consumer go to that point of purchase for that particular product. Smashbox themselves said that in the first 2 months, they'd actually seen a 27% increase in conversions thanks to this app. We're also seeing that technology, as well as tracking eyes, can also track our facial expressions as well, and sort of see if we're particularly surprised or dissatisfied or confused or hesitant about particular products. And Angus.ai is a shopper insight technology that we've seen used in a couple of stores to sort of help shop assistants actually help the consumer more. This idea that if a consumer is hanging around a particular shelf more and more, if they're looking particularly confused, this will then highlight and flag this up to the shop assistant, who can then go and help that consumer out in store. So it can help sort of make this shopping experience more enjoyable or more informative. We're also seeing as well that voice activation is becoming increasingly popular and more seamless now as well. We've seen sort of the popularity of the Amazon Echo and the Google Home, as well as other voice activated sort of speakers in the home. Sort of being able to give advice to consumers, or just to help their purchasing habits as well. And we've actually seen as well that L'Oreal, who initially saw augmented reality as one of the big stepping forward, going forward for their company, particularly on a digital level, they've now said that voice activation for them is actually going to be very important as well. So this idea that beauty brands are tapping into this voice activation concept as well is very important. We're also seeing as well that it's not just enough nowadays to just watch a beauty tutorial online or on our phones. We actually now, again, can cut out that middleman and buy direct, which will save us time and sort of save the fuss of having to search for the products and then go straight through. So this is an idea that Nix actually used in its app, which shows sort of shoppable video tutorials. So consumers can actually add products to their shopping basket as the makeup artist is using them, or as they see them in the video. So it's in real time, and so you don't have to leave the video. You can literally fill up your basket whilst watching the particular tutorial. And this can create sort of personalized beauty profiles for the consumers, and it's something that Nix have used more and more to help sort of utilize more information to do with its MPD program. And this idea of buying direct as well is also something that we've seen, as I say, more and more in social shopping as well. And the popularity of this is definitely increasing. So much so that we've seen Instagram and Snapchat jump on board with these concepts as well. Instagram works at the minute solely with just retailers rather than specific brands, and with posts you can then click and add stuff to your shopping basket based on what you see on particular Instagram posts, which again makes a more seamless and a more convenient shopping experience for the social media user. Unlike Instagram, Snapchat's actually utilizing brands and influencers to actually promote products as well. And they're actually tagging posts with additional information and links, which again is making sort of that element of shoppability more seamless and more convenient for consumers. And what we're seeing going forward then with this private eye trend is this idea that facial recognition will continue to develop, and it will continue to help identify and make a more personalized shopping experience. We've already seen that we open our phones and our tablets by using our facial expression, and this can help brands in particular to sort of follow responses to particular products, to particular information, and also to adverts, which can really help brands build up a better image of the consumer. We're also seeing as well that not just our expressions, but actually how we feel can actually help brands going forward as well. And our bodies can actually enhance this method of personalization. It's something that we saw by Lightwave Studio when they partnered with Mountain Dew to read biometric data from skateboarders, sort of tracking their heart rate, their skin temperature, their motion, and also their skin response to actually skating. And then they were able to create these sort of pieces of art which were specific to that specific person. And this is something that brands can use to actually create emotionally responsive displays in store, or even personalized packaging as well. We're also seeing brands looking to appeal to all of our senses as well, not just sort of our sight and sound, but also our smell. And this is something that we've seen come to the VR category as well, this idea that the Vaxo VR have developed this device that can actually attach to the bottom of a VR headset and actually emit realistic scents that are synced to the concept. So this idea that fragrance companies could get on board with this and utilize this type of technology to appeal to consumers and enhance their experience as well. We're also seeing as well with this idea that there's so much data and so much technology now, that data will actually be used to better understand consumer behavior. And it's something we saw Transport for London do when they actually followed Wi-Fi usage from passengers' smartphones as they navigated through the London Underground, which was initially a safety concept, this idea that they could manage passenger flow and improve safety among within busy tube stations. But they also used the data to increase advertising rates in particular hotspots. If they knew more people were going to be there, they knew they could make more money. And this is definitely something that brands can use more and more when they're looking at sort of how they can track data and what they can use it for. But it's important as well to know that consumers are beginning to understand the value of their data, and brands are looking to highlight this for them as consumers are now expecting a return. We don't just want to give our data away for free, it needs to have a particular value. And it's something that was highlighted in Kaspersky Labs' Data Dollar pop-up store that it ran, where it was selling items of clothing and art. But rather than traditional payment, consumers could only buy those things with personal data that the store could then take from its smartphone, highlighting the fact that how much are you willing to give away to a company and to a brand, but also saying that, you know what, if I'm giving you data, I do also demand payment or demand something in return for this. So to wrap up the private eye trend, we're seeing that tracking software it means that we can now read and respond quicker to consumers, making a more seamless shopping experience. We're also seeing that technology is actually enhancing the interaction between brand and consumer, and actually making it easier then to actually create products and particular ranges for particular consumers as well. But we're also seeing as well that the value of data is being realized. So we need to be able to offer something in exchange for this, as this is ultimately going to help build trust for consumers. So there's our 4 trends. As I say, you can sort of see hopefully how you can roughly apply them in different ways to sort of different BPC categories and how sort of roughly they all relate to one another, but all have sort of quite distinct points as well. So thank you very much for listening. I'm not sure if we have any time for any questions at this point, but again, thank you very much.
Well, I'm afraid we don't have time to answer the questions that you sent. In any case, thank you very much, Andrew, for this very insightful presentation. And thank you all for listening in. I'll be sending out a follow-up email where you can access the recording and the files from today's session. In addition, we will also love to hear your feedback about this webinar. So please take a few seconds to respond to the survey, which will pop up right after we finish. We hope you join us for another webinar soon. Thank you again, and goodbye.